Doctor wiped the sweat from her forehead as she looked at the test results on her screen. After 3 years of work, she was finally close to something that could change everything. The lab around her hummed with quiet activity as other researchers worked at their stations, but barely noticed them. Her mind was focused on the numbers dancing across her monitor. The hospital ship Haven's Grace moved slowly through space, its white hull marked with the Red Cross symbol that meant safety to every living being in the galaxy. Had called this ship home for almost 4 years now, ever since the war between humans and the Empire had started. She was not a soldier or a fighter. She was a doctor and a scientist, and her job was to heal anyone who needed help. Captain Daniel Murphy walked into the medical bay, his boots clicking softly on the metal floor. He was a good man, thought, someone who truly believed that healing should have no borders. Under his command, the Haven's Grace had saved thousands of lives from dozens of different species. Humans, even the strange blue-skinned who rarely spoke to anyone outside their own kind. "How are the patients doing today, Doctor?" Murphy asked, stopping beside's workstation. "Better than expected," replied, not looking up from her screen. "The soldiers we picked up last week are healing faster than I thought they would. Their natural healing abilities are really something to see." Murphy nodded. He had seen many wounded beings pass through their medical bays, and he never stopped being amazed by how different each species could be. Some healed quickly, others slowly. Some responded well to human medicine, others needed completely different treatments. "What about your research?" Murphy asked, still working on that universal cure idea. Finally looked up, her dark eyes bright with excitement. "It's not just a cure, Captain. It's bigger than that. I think I've found something that could help every living being in the galaxy." She turned her screen so Murphy could see the complex charts and graphs displayed there. To him, it looked like a mess of colorful lines and numbers, but he could tell from his voice that it was important. "I've been studying the biology of every species we've treated," explained. "Humans, even though with their silicon-based blood. At first, I thought we were all completely different, but the more I study, the more I see that we're not so different after all." Murphy raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean we all share something deep down in ourselves, something that suggests we might all come from the same place, a long time ago. If I'm right, then maybe I can create treatments that work for everyone, not just one species at a time." Before Murphy could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Commander Lisa Park's voice filled the medical bay. "Captain Murphy to the bridge. We're receiving a distress signal." Murphy sighed. Another emergency, another group of wounded beings who needed their help. "I have to go, Doctor. Keep working on your research. If it's as important as you think it is, the galaxy needs it." Watched him leave, then turned back to her work. She had been so close to a breakthrough when the captain had interrupted her. The data she was looking at showed something incredible. Every species they had studied shared the same basic building blocks of life. The differences between them were like different languages written with the same alphabet. More importantly, had discovered that these differences were not natural. Someone or something had changed the genetic structure of every species in the galaxy long ago, making them unable to share biology with each other. It was like locks had been placed on every species, keeping them separate. But thought she had found the key. Her fingers moved quickly over her keyboard as she input new data. If she was right, she could create a treatment that would not only heal injuries, but could help species work together in ways they never had before. Imagine humans with the healing abilities of, or with the problem-solving skills of humans, all without losing what made each species special. The door to her lab slid open and Dr. Cole walked in. He was her research partner and closest friend on the ship, had worked with since the beginning of the war, and he was one of the few people who truly understood what she was trying to accomplish. "You need to see this," said, his face serious. "We just picked up a ship. Their crew is dying from some kind of biological weapon." Stomach turned cold. Biological weapons were banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. They were considered too cruel, too dangerous. Who would use something like that? "They think it was us," said quietly. "They think humans created a weapon that targets their biology specifically." Stood up quickly, her chair rolling backwards. "That's impossible. We don't have that kind of technology, and even if we did, it would be against everything we stand for." "I know that and you know that, but they don't. Their ship is barely holding together and they're dying fast. We need your help to figure out how to treat them." Saved her research and followed out of her lab. As they walked through the corridors of the Haven's Grace, she thought about what this meant. If someone was using biological weapons in this war, it could change everything. The careful balance of the Galactic Medical Accords, the trust that allowed hospital ships like theirs to operate safely, could all be destroyed. They reached the main medical bay where the survivors had been brought, had treated wounded before, but she had never seen anything like this. Their normally gray skin had turned a sickly green color, and they were struggling to breathe. Whatever had been done to them was attacking their bodies at the cellular level. "How long do they have?" asked one of the nurses. "Maybe 6 hours if we're lucky," the nurse replied. "We've tried everything we know, but nothing is working." Looked at the dying and made a decision. Her research would have to wait. Right now, these beings needed her help, and she would not let them die if there was anything she could do to save them. She did not know that in just a few hours, her decision to help these would set in motion events that would change the galaxy forever. She did not know that someone was watching their every move, planning something terrible. All she knew was that she was a doctor, and doctors saved lives. Rolled up her sleeves and got to work. Admiral Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the vessel Dark Thunder, staring at the reports on his screen. His gray skin was darker than usual, a sign of deep anger among his people. The intelligence officer who had brought him the news stood nearby, waiting for orders. "You're telling me that the human hospital ship is actually a weapons research facility?" Harrison asked, his voice low and dangerous. "That's what our sources indicate, Admiral," the officer replied. "The ship called Haven's Grace is supposedly developing biological weapons designed to kill. Our people who were rescued by them were infected with test agents." Harrison turned away from the screen and looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. He had been fighting this war for 5 years now, and he had seen too many of his people die. The humans were clever, more clever than most species gave them credit for. If they were developing biological weapons, it could mean the end of his entire race. But something about this report bothered him. Harrison had studied human military tactics for years, and biological weapons did not fit their usual style. Humans preferred direct combat, honest fighting. They had strange ideas about honor in war that most other species found foolish. "Sir, should we inform the Galactic Council?" another officer asked. Harrison shook his head. "The Council moves too slowly. If the humans are developing weapons that could kill every in the galaxy, we cannot wait for debates and committees. We must act now." What Harrison did not know was that the intelligence report was false. It had been created by a group of extremists within his own command who wanted the war to continue. They believed that peace with humans was impossible and that only total victory would save their people. They had planted fake evidence and bribed sources to create a lie that would force Harrison to take action. On the Haven's Grace, worked desperately to save the dying soldiers. She had been in the medical bay for 8 hours straight, trying every treatment she could think of. The poison in their systems was unlike anything she had ever seen before. It attacked their cells in a way that seemed almost designed to cause maximum suffering. "Doctor, you need to rest," Commander Lisa Park said, placing a hand on shoulder. "You've been working without a break." "I can't stop now," replied, not looking away from her patient. "I think I'm starting to understand how this poison works. If I can figure out the mechanism, maybe I can reverse it. Had connected her research on universal biology to the treatment of the poisoned. The weapon that had been used against them was sophisticated, targeting specific genetic markers that only possessed. But work had shown her that these genetic differences were artificial, created long ago by some unknown force. "I need to get back to my lab," said suddenly. "I think my research might be the key to saving them." She ran through the corridors of the ship, her mind racing. If she could apply her universal compatibility theory to the poison, she might be able to create an antidote. More than that, she might be able to prove that biological weapons like this one were not just cruel, but unnecessary. Her research could show the galaxy that all species were related, that they could work together instead of trying to destroy each other. Burst into her laboratory and began pulling up her files. The genetic data she had collected from dozens of species filled her screens. She could see the patterns now, the connections that linked every living being in the galaxy. With this knowledge, she could not only cure the poisoned, but she could create a new kind of medicine that would work for everyone. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she prepared to transmit her findings to both human and medical authorities. This discovery was too important to keep secret. If both sides understood what she had learned, maybe they could end this war and work together for the good of all species. But was not the only one working frantically that day. Admiral Harrison had made his decision. The intelligence reports, false though they were, had convinced him that the Haven's Grace was a threat that had to be eliminated. He gave the order to his fleet commanders. "Prepare for attack. Target the human vessel. We cannot allow them to complete their weapons research." "Sir," one of his officers said carefully, "the ship is broadcasting medical neutrality codes. It is clearly marked as a hospital ship." Harrison's face grew even darker. "A disguise. The humans are clever enough to hide their weapons research behind medical markings. We will not be fooled." The officer wanted to argue, but he could see that the admiral had made up his mind. Harrison was a good commander, but the years of war had changed him. He saw threats everywhere, even where none existed. On the Haven's Grace, Captain Murphy received an urgent message from his bridge crew. "Captain, we're detecting multiple warships approaching our position. They're not responding to our medical identification signals." Murphy frowned. "Keep broadcasting our neutrality codes. Make sure they know we're a hospital ship." In her laboratory, was just finishing her data transmission when the ship's alarm system began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the vessel, and the voice of the ship's computer filled every corridor. "All hands, this is not a drill. Prepare for possible hostile contact." Looked up from her work, confused. The Haven's Grace was protected by the Galactic Medical Accords. No civilized species would attack a hospital ship. It was unthinkable, a violation of every law of war. She turned back to her computer, determined to complete her transmission. Her research was too important to lose. If something happened to the ship, she had to make sure that her discovery would survive. On the bridge of the Dark Thunder, Admiral Harrison watched as his fleet surrounded the human hospital ship. The vessel looked innocent enough, its white hull gleaming in the light of nearby stars. But Harrison was convinced that inside that harmless-looking ship, humans were developing weapons that could destroy his entire species. "Admiral, the human ship is still broadcasting medical codes," his communication officer reported. "They're requesting safe passage under the medical accords." "A lie," Harrison said coldly. "Fire." The first plasma torpedo struck the Haven's Grace near its engine section. The ship shuddered under the impact, and its lights flickered. Throughout the vessel, alarms began to wail as the crew realized what was happening. Felt the ship shake around her and knew that her worst fears were coming true. Someone was actually attacking a hospital ship. She looked at her computer screen and saw that her data transmission was only half complete. The ship's communication systems were failing under the attack. Please, she whispered to herself, just a few more minutes. Captain Murphy's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. This is Captain Daniel Murphy of the medical vessel Haven's Grace. We are a hospital ship operating under the Galactic Medical Accords. We surrender. Please cease your attack. But Admiral Harrison was not listening to surrender offers. He was convinced that every second the ship remained intact was another second for the humans to complete their terrible weapons. He ordered his fleet to continue firing. The second torpedo struck the ship's medical bay, killing dozens of patients and medical staff instantly. The third hits laboratory section. Looked up as her ceiling began to collapse around her. Her computer screen flickered and went dark, her research only partially transmitted to the outside world. She thought about the dying she had been trying to save, about the discovery that could have changed everything, about the peace that might have been possible if people could just understand that they were all connected. The fourth torpedo finished what the others had started. The Haven's Grace, with all 2,000 souls aboard, was destroyed completely. Admiral Harrison watched the hospital ship break apart and felt no satisfaction, only a grim sense of duty completed. He believed he had prevented a catastrophe, stopped the humans from developing weapons that could have killed every in the galaxy. He did not know that he had just committed the greatest war crime in galactic history. He did not know that the ship had actually been trying to save lives, not take them. And he certainly did not know that in destroying Doctor, he had killed the one person whose research might have brought true peace to the galaxy. Instead, Admiral Jake Harrison had given humanity something else entirely. He had given them a reason to show the galaxy what humans could really do when someone crossed a line that should never be crossed. The war was about to change in ways that no one could imagine. Dr. Cole sat in his laboratory on Earth, staring at the broken pieces of data that had arrived 3 days ago. The quantum transmission from the Haven's Grace had been cut short when the ship was destroyed, leaving him with only fragments of final research. But even these incomplete pieces were enough to make him realize what the galaxy had lost. Had known for 15 years. They had studied together, worked together, and shared dreams of making the universe a better place for all living beings. Now she was gone, killed along with 2,000 other innocent people, and was the only person left who might understand what her research really meant. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the data again. Had been close to something incredible, something that would have changed everything. The numbers on his screen told a story that most people would find hard to believe, but knew work well enough to see the truth hidden in the fragments. The door to his lab opened, and President Helen Carter walked in, followed by 2 security guards. Was surprised to see the leader of the human government in his small research facility, but he supposed that the destruction of a hospital ship was important enough to bring her here personally. Dr. Cole, President Carter said, her voice serious. I understand you were Doctor's research partner. We need to know what she was working on. Gestured to his computer screen. Discovered something that could have ended this war, Madam President. Maybe all wars between different species. President Carter sat down in the chair across from his desk. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but could see the strength in her that had made her the leader of humanity during these difficult times. Tell me everything, she said. Took a deep breath and began to explain work in terms that someone without a science background could understand. Was studying the biology of different species that came to our hospital ships. She noticed that despite looking very different on the outside, all of them shared certain basic structures at the cellular level. What kind of structures? The president asked. Think of it like this, said, pulling up a simple diagram on his screen. Every species in the galaxy is like a different type of building, but they're all built with the same basic materials. Discovered that we all share the same foundation, the same underlying genetic code. President Carter leaned forward, interested despite the complex science. And what did that mean? It meant that all life in the galaxy came from the same source, millions of years ago. But someone or something had changed each species, making them unable to mix their biology with others. Found proof that these changes were artificial, like locks placed on every species to keep them separate. Paused, thinking about how to explain the most important part. Had figured out how to remove those locks. She could have created treatments that would let species share their best qualities with each other. Humans could gain the healing abilities of, while could gain human problem-solving skills, all without losing what made each species special. The president was quiet for a long moment, understanding the implications. That would have made the war pointless, if species could share abilities instead of fighting over resources. Exactly, said. Was preparing to share this discovery with both human and medical authorities when the ship was attacked. She wanted to prove that cooperation was better than conflict. President Carter stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Dr. Cole, I need you to be completely honest with me. Could research be used for other purposes? Felt a chill run down his spine. He had been hoping the president would not ask that question, but he knew it was inevitable. Yes, Madam President. If research can be used to help species work together, it can also be used to target them specifically. Explain. Pulled up another set of data on his screen. Identified the unique genetic markers for every species we've encountered. She mapped out their biological weaknesses and strengths. If someone wanted to create a weapon that would only affect humans, or only affect any other specific species, her research provides the roadmap. The president turned back to face him. Are you saying we could create diseases that would kill every in the galaxy while leaving humans completely unharmed? Theoretically, yes, said quietly, but would never have wanted her work used that way. She believed in healing, not harming. President Carter was silent for several minutes, thinking about what she had learned. Finally, she spoke again. Dr. Cole, I'm going to ask you to do something that might go against everything you believe in as a scientist. I want you to complete research. Looked up, surprised. Madam President, I just told you how dangerous this research could be. And I understand that danger, President Carter replied. But I also understand something else. They have shown that they will attack hospital ships. They will kill doctors and researchers who are trying to help people. They have crossed a line that civilized beings should never cross. She walked back to his desk and placed her hands on it, leaning forward. Dr. Cole, in destroying and her work, they have made a terrible mistake. They have killed the one person who could have brought peace to this galaxy. Instead, they have given us the tools for something else entirely. Felt his stomach turn cold as he realized what the president was suggesting. You want to use research to create biological weapons. Not weapons, President Carter said. Leverage, the threat of weapons. Research could give us the power to end any species in the galaxy if we chose to do so, but we would only use that power if someone threatened to end us first. Stared at his computer screen, at the fragments of his beautiful dream of universal cooperation. She wanted to bring species together, not hold them hostage. Wanted peace, President Carter said. Sometimes, Dr. Cole, the only way to achieve peace is to make war too terrible to consider. If every species in the galaxy knows that humanity can end them with a single engineered disease, but also knows that we will only use that power in self-defense, then maybe they will think twice before attacking our hospital ships. Understood the logic, but it felt wrong somehow. Had died trying to prove that all species were connected, that they could work together instead of threatening each other. Now her research would be used to make humanity the most feared species in the galaxy. What if we're wrong? Asked. What if having this power changes us? What if we become the monsters we're trying to protect ourselves from? President Carter was quiet for a moment before answering. That's a risk we'll have to take, Dr. Cole. Because the alternative is letting the galaxy think that destroying hospital ships and murdering doctors is acceptable behavior. Died because she believed in healing. The least we can do is make sure no one else dies the same way. Looked at the data one more time, thinking about his friend who had wanted nothing more than to help others. Had discovered something that could have made the galaxy a better place for everyone. Instead, her murder would make humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. "How long do I have?" asked finally. "As long as you need," President Carter replied. "But Dr. Cole, remember this. Research isn't just about what we could do to other species. It's also about what we could do for them. When this war is over, when the galaxy understands that attacking healers comes with consequences, maybe then we can use work the way she intended." President Carter left the laboratory and was alone with the fragments of his friend's final gift to the galaxy. He thought about her dreams of universal cooperation and biological harmony. She had wanted to show the galaxy that all life was connected. Began to work on completing her research, knowing that discovery would indeed show the galaxy how connected all life really was. Every species would learn that their survival depended on one simple rule: never again attack those who seek only to heal. Had wanted to be remembered as a healer. Instead, she would be remembered as the woman whose death taught the galaxy to fear the consequences of harming innocents. Worked through the night, building's legacy one genetic sequence at a time. The emergency meeting room in the presidential palace was filled with the most important people in human government. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a long table, looking at the faces of generals, admirals, scientists, and politicians who would help decide humanity's future. The weight of research sat heavy on everyone's minds. General Young spoke first, her voice sharp and military precise. "Madam President, we should strike back immediately. They destroyed a hospital ship. They killed 2,000 innocent people. Our citizens demand justice." Admiral Brooks shook his head. "General, our fleets are outnumbered 3-1. A direct military attack would be suicide. They have been preparing for this war longer than we have." "Then what do you suggest?" General Young asked, her frustration clear. "We let them get away with murdering doctors and nurses." Dr. Cole sat quietly at the far end of the table, a data pad in front of him containing completed research. 3 weeks had passed since President Carter had asked him to finish his friend's work, and now he had answers that no one wanted to hear. Senator Robert leaned forward. "Before we talk about revenge, we need to think about what kind of people we want to be. If we respond to their war crime with an even greater crime, how are we any better than they are?" "Because they started it," General Young replied. "They crossed the line first." President Carter raised her hand for silence. "Dr. Cole, please tell everyone what you've discovered." Looked around the table at all the important faces staring at him. He thought about her dreams of peace and cooperation, about how she would have hated what her research was about to become. "'S work is complete," said quietly. "I now understand exactly how life developed in this galaxy and how we can manipulate it." He activated his data pad, and a holographic display appeared above the table showing a complex genetic map. Every species in the galaxy shares the same basic genetic structure. We all come from the same ancient race that spread life throughout the stars millions of years ago. Dr. Amy Foster, the military strategist, studied the display carefully. "What does that mean for us practically?" "It means we can create biological agents that target any specific species with perfect accuracy," replied. "A disease that kills every but leaves humans untouched, or a poison that affects only, or a virus that destroys any other species we choose." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Senator was the first to speak. "That's genocide. You're talking about the power to commit genocide against entire species." "Yes," said simply, "that's exactly what I'm talking about." General Young's eyes lit up with interest. How long would it take to create such a weapon? I could have a prototype ready in 6 months, answered. But there's something else you need to understand. Research doesn't just tell us how to kill other species. It tells us how to kill every species, including ourselves. Admiral Brooks frowned. What do you mean? Change the holographic display to show human genetic markers. If research becomes public knowledge, any species could use it to create weapons against us. We would be giving the entire galaxy the power to destroy each other completely. President Carter had been listening carefully to everything. Now she stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where millions of humans lived their daily lives, unaware that their leaders were discussing the future of all life in the galaxy. Dr. Cole, she said without turning around, in your opinion, would have wanted us to use her research this way. Thought about his friend, about her gentle hands healing wounded aliens, about her excitement when she discovered that all species were connected. No, Madam President. Believe that understanding our connections would bring peace, not enable greater destruction. But she's dead, General Young said harshly. Murdered by people who don't care about peace or healing. Noble ideas died with her. Dr. Foster looked at the genetic display again. Dr. Cole, you said we could target any species. Does that include partial effects? Could we create something that makes a species sick but doesn't kill them? Nodded. Research is incredibly precise. We could create agents that cause temporary illness, permanent disability, genetic changes that affect future generations, or complete extinction. The level of control is almost unlimited. Senator stood up, his face pale. We're talking about playing God with entire civilizations. This is too much power for anyone to have. They didn't think about that when they destroyed our hospital ship, General Young replied. They wanted to play God when they decided that human medical research was too dangerous to exist. President Carter turned back to face the group. What if we don't use research to create weapons at all? Everyone looked at her with confusion. Admiral Brooks spoke first. I don't understand, Madam President. What if we use it as a shield instead of a sword? President Carter explained. We announce to the galaxy that we have completed doctor's research. We explain exactly what it can do, but we also announce that we will never use it offensively. Dr. Foster raised an eyebrow. You want to tell our enemies that we have the ultimate weapon but promise never to use it. Not never, President Carter corrected. We tell them we will only use it if someone tries to destroy humanity first. We become the galaxy's immune system. Any species that threatens to wipe out another species will face extinction themselves. Felt a spark of hope for the first time since death. That's actually closer to what wanted. She believed that understanding our biological connections would prevent conflict, not cause it. Senator was nodding slowly. It's like nuclear deterrence, but for biology. Too terrible to use, but too powerful to ignore. General Young looked skeptical. What if they don't believe we have this power? What if they think we're bluffing? Then we prove it, President Carter said grimly. We find a small, uninhabited world with simple life forms and demonstrate what research can do. We show the galaxy that we can end all life on a planet with a single biological agent, but we only use it on empty worlds. Admiral Brooks was studying the genetic display. This could actually work. If every species knows that attacking others means facing extinction themselves, maybe they'll think twice about starting wars. But what about justice for the Haven's Grace? General Young asked. What about punishment for Admiral Harrison and the people who murdered our doctors? President Carter was quiet for a long moment before answering. General, sometimes the greatest justice is preventing the same crime from happening again. If research can stop any future attacks on hospital ships, medical facilities, or humanitarian missions, then maybe that's the best way to honor her memory. Looked around the table at all the faces staring back at him. These people were about to make a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Research, which had started as a quest to heal and unite different species, was about to become humanity's ultimate deterrent against galactic war. "There's one more thing," said quietly. "Research doesn't just give us the power to destroy other species. It also gives us the power to improve them. We could cure genetic diseases that have plagued civilizations for thousands of years. We could extend, enhance intelligence, improve physical abilities." President Carter smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "So we offer the galaxy a choice. Work with us for mutual benefit or face the consequences of aggression. The carrot and the stick." "Would have liked the carrot part," said. "Then that's what we'll lead with," President Carter decided. "Dr. Cole, I want you to prepare 2 presentations. The first will show the galaxy what research can do to help them. The second will show what it can do to destroy them. We'll hope we only need to use the first one." As the meeting ended and people began to leave, stayed behind to talk with President Carter. "Madam President, are we sure this is the right choice? Wanted to bring species together, not make them afraid of each other." President Carter put her hand on shoulder. "Dr. Cole wanted peace. Sometimes fear is the only thing that stops violence. If research can make the galaxy too afraid to attack healers and peacemakers, then maybe we can have the peace she dreamed of." Gathered his data pads and left the meeting room, carrying with him the completed research that would soon change everything. Had wanted to show the galaxy that all life was connected. Soon, every species in the galaxy would understand just how true that really was. 6 months after the destruction of the Haven's Grace, Dr. Cole stood before the largest gathering of species representatives in galactic history. The great assembly hall on the neutral world of Prime was filled with beings from every corner of known space. Humans and dozens of other species had come to hear what humanity had discovered in the ruins of research. Felt nervous as he looked out at the crowd. Some faces showed curiosity, others showed fear, and a few showed open hostility. The delegation sat in the front rows, led by Admiral Jake Harrison himself. The man who had ordered the attack on the hospital ship looked older now, his gray skin pale and his eyes hollow. President Helen Carter introduced to the assembly. "Dr. Cole will now present the findings of Dr. whose research was cut short when she was murdered aboard a clearly marked hospital ship 6 months ago." Activated the holographic display that filled the center of the Great Hall. The image showed the genetic map that had died trying to complete, the proof that all life in the galaxy shared a common origin. "6 months ago, my colleague Doctor made a discovery that should have changed our galaxy for the better," began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's speakers. "She found proof that every species represented in this room shares the same genetic foundation. We are all children of the same ancient race that spread life throughout the stars." Murmurs spread through the assembly as translators worked to convey words to dozens of different languages. The implications of what he was saying slowly sank in. "Doctor believed that this discovery would bring peace to our galaxy," continued. "She thought that if we understood how connected we all are, we would stop fighting and start working together. She was preparing to share this knowledge freely with all species when she was killed." Admiral Harrison shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had learned the truth about the false intelligence reports that had led to his decision to attack the Haven's Grace. The extremists in his own command had been arrested, but that did not bring back the 2,000 innocent people who had died because of his mistake. Changed the display to show medical applications. Research could have given us universal medical treatments that work for any species. Imagine diseases that have plagued your people for generations being cured in a matter of days. Imagine genetic damage from centuries of warfare being healed completely. The assembly grew quiet as showed example after example of what research could accomplish. Cancer that affected could be eliminated. The genetic weakness that made age quickly could be reversed. Even the breathing problems that troubled in low-oxygen environments could be solved. Doctor wanted to give these gifts freely to everyone, said. She believed that sharing this knowledge would prove that cooperation was better than conflict. Paused and looked directly at Admiral Harrison. But Doctor was murdered before she could complete her work. Someone decided that her research was too dangerous to exist, that the possibility of peace was a threat that had to be destroyed. The Admiral looked down at his hands, unable to meet eyes. So humanity faced a choice, continued. We could abandon work and let her death be meaningless, or we could complete what she started and show the galaxy what we learned. Changed the display again, this time showing the darker applications of research. The genetic targets that could be used to create species-specific weapons appeared in the air above the assembly. Research doesn't just show us how to heal, said, his voice growing colder. It shows us how to harm with perfect precision. We could create diseases that would kill every in the galaxy while leaving every other species completely untouched. We could design poisons that would target only any species we chose. Fear rippled through the assembly as beings realized what was describing. Several representatives stood up as if to leave, but's next words stopped them. But we won't. The hall fell completely silent. Humanity has completed Doctor's research, announced. We have the power to heal any species or to destroy any species. We could end wars by eliminating everyone on one side. We could commit genocide with nothing more than a genetically tailored virus. Looked around the assembly, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. But we choose not to. Instead, we offer the galaxy a new kind of peace. We will share medical discoveries freely with any species that wants them. We will cure your diseases, heal your genetic damage, and extend your. All we ask in return is that you follow one simple rule. His voice grew stronger as he delivered humanity's ultimatum. Never again attack those who seek only to heal. Never again destroy hospitals, medical ships, or research facilities. Never again murder doctors, nurses, or scientists who are trying to help others. If any species breaks this rule, if anyone attacks healers and peacemakers, they will face the same fate that they tried to impose on others. The assembly erupted in discussion as species representatives talked among themselves. Some seemed angry, others seemed frightened, but many seemed relieved. The idea of universal medical treatment was too appealing to ignore. Admiral Harrison stood up slowly. The entire assembly turned to look at him as he walked to the speaking platform, stepped aside, wondering what the man who had killed would say. I am Admiral Jake Harrison of the Empire, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months ago, I gave the order to attack the human hospital ship Haven's Grace. I believed false reports that said the ship was developing weapons. I was wrong. Harrison paused, struggling with his words. I killed 2,000 innocent people, including Doctor, who was trying to save the lives of my own people. I committed the greatest war crime in galactic history because I was afraid of shadows and lies. The Admiral looked directly at Dr. Cole. I am dying. My body is failing because of a genetic condition that has plagued my family for generations. Your species could cure me easily with Doctor's research. But I do not ask for healing. I ask for something else. Harrison turned to face the full assembly. I ask that my people accept humanity's offer. I ask that every species in this room accept it. Doctor wanted to bring us together, to show us that we are all connected. Her death has shown us something else. It has shown us that attacking healers brings consequences that no one can afford. Admiral Harrison returned to his seat and took the platform again. The Institute for Galactic Biological Harmony will open next month on Earth, announced. Scientists from every species are welcome to come and learn. We will share research freely with anyone who commits to using it only for healing. looked out at the assembly one final time. Doctor believed that understanding our connections would bring peace. She was right, just not in the way she expected. We are all connected now by a simple understanding. Anyone who threatens healers, researchers, or peacemakers threatens their own survival. As the assembly ended and representatives began to leave, many stopped to speak about joining the Institute. Even some expressed interest in learning's techniques. Admiral Harrison waited until the hall was nearly empty before approaching. The two men stood facing each other, the killer and the friend of the victim. "Dr. Cole," Harrison said quietly, "I know I have no right to ask, but would you consider treating my condition? I want to live long enough to make sure my people never make the same mistake I did." Looked at the man who had killed his best friend. Would have treated him without hesitation, would have healed his enemy because that was what healers did. "Admiral," said finally, "Doctor believed that all life was connected. That includes yours. Report to the Institute next week and we'll see what we can do." Harrison nodded gratefully and left the hall, leaving alone with his thoughts. Walked to the center of the great hall and looked up at the holographic display that still showed genetic map. All those connections between species, all those possibilities for cooperation and healing, all of it made possible by a woman who had died trying to save the lives of her enemies. "They thought they were stopping you," said to the empty hall. "Instead, they made sure the whole galaxy would remember what happens when someone tries to destroy hope." Turned off the display and walked out of the hall. Behind him, the space where research had been shown seemed to glow with promise. The galaxy would never again know the devastation of attacks on healers, because now everyone understood the price of such actions. Had wanted to show the galaxy that all life was connected. Her death had proven that connection in the most permanent way possible. Every species now knew that their survival depended on protecting those who sought only to heal. The war between humans ended that day, not with surrender or victory, but with understanding. This dream of universal cooperation would live on, protected by the knowledge that destroying healers meant destroying oneself. The galaxy had learned to fear the consequences of harming the innocent, and in that fear had finally found her peace.